for the regular meeting for Monday, September 12th. It is 5:31 p.m. and I will call our meeting to order. Before we get underway with our regular business. For some people watching at home, they might not realize that as mayor, it's my duty and honor to speak on behalf of council. And with that in mind, I want to extend our condolences to members of the royal family, citizens of the United Kingdom, and the British Commonwealth as a whole on the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. For most of our citizens, I think it's safe to say that Queen Elizabeth has been the only British monarch and Canada's head of state that they have ever known. The Queen ruled for an amazing 70 years, reaching her platinum jubilee just earlier this year. During that time, the Queen has visited our country and province many, many times and supported many worthwhile causes. Much of Lacombe's history book has been written during her long reign as our Queen, and that history is in many ways connected to her leadership and counsel to democratically elect Canadian governments at all levels. Many of our residents and Canadians across the country will undoubtedly miss the Queen's stable, rational, and supportive time as our head of state. So on behalf of the City of Lacombe, Council offers our sympathies to all those mourning the Queen's passing. Out of respect, I'm sure you noticed the city flags are flying at half-mast and will continue to do so. And as well, the Queen's image, out of respect, will remain draped for the remainder of the mourning period. Thanks, everyone. So for our regular business, we have our agendas to review. With respect to the consent agenda, are there any items that you'd like to see removed? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to add an item because I have a councillor report to add. So how do we do that? Because it's not really part of the consent agenda. Do I just add it?
Well, that's one of the nice things about having an ever-evolving set of rules to work from, because I'm not sure what the normal proceedings are, given that I'm sure there's a way that we can do it, but given that item would not be available to the public, I don't know that it necessarily belongs in the consent agenda or not. Coordinator Bellabono, what's your thoughts on that item? Or sorry, Chief Gowdy, what's the proper route to enter those into the minutes?
So Coordinator Bellabono and I talked about this ahead of time, and we do have this in electronic format. So what we'll do, if you don't want to change anything else in the consent agenda, we'll consider this added. And so someone will make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended. And we do have the electronic copy of this, so we'll ensure that it's attached on the agenda and in the minutes. It'll be reflected as added.
That certainly seems like a worthwhile way to go to me. Does anyone have any issues with that? Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I guess I was wanting to speak to it a little bit.
Okay,
to my
so
report.
both enter in there and remove it from the consent agenda. Okay. Very good. Councillor Connick.
I'd like to add 3 things in camera in land. And I wouldn't mind pulling out the Tollfield Victim Services letter. I think there's something to talk about there maybe.
Very good. And I believe there are 2 other additional items for in camera. So that is an additional 5 items, one of which was land and one of which was legal, and not knowing whether or not they're necessarily the same, but I think it's right that we identify all 5. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended? Councillor Connick?
Sure, I'm prepared to make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that was unanimous. Thank you. With respect to the overarching agenda for its adoption, it was suggested that there is some 5 additional items under in camera. Any other additions or changes? Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just to note also that we moved that victim services letter to the regular agenda, but I would move that we accept the regular agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That is unanimous as well. So the first item that we will go to then is the Tofield Victim Services redesign letter. And I would ask that Councillor Connick, what was the items that specifically that you would like to go through on that letter?
Well, I was quite concerned about the letter, and I don't know if Councillor Hoekstra can speak to it a little bit or not, but I'm just wondering if this affects our victim services as well, or what the story is, because this is a little troubling that they have decided to do this. Thank you.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I was unaware of it until I read this letter. The Lacombe Commission will be meeting on Thursday, so I will bring it up there.
Thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Connick, that was my thoughts as well, but it's concerning. However, given that we have not heard from our own victim services, I think that we should perhaps allow some time for those wheels to churn for a bit and bring it back for discussion as required. Anything else on that item? The next item then was Councillor Hoekstra's report dated September 12th. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. My report is fairly regular, except the conference. I just wanted to highlight, I went to the CARE conference last week, and that is the Coordinated Action for Recycling Enterprises. Because I couldn't go to AUMA, this email came through our messaging, and I thought, I'm going to go. I highly encourage everybody to consider attending conferences like this. I don't know what latitude we have to do that, because I haven't heard a lot of us doing that, but I gather from the organizers at this conference that there used to be city of Lacombe people who'd go to this conference. Anyhow, I heard a lot and learned a lot, but I think the most significant learning I had at this event was sitting beside people who are recyclers and or their frustration with the work they're trying to do. So it was just a really an excellent time well spent, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Hoekstra? Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, through Councillor Hoekstra. The recycling programs that you reviewed, did you get a feeling that they were successful and positive for the communities they served?
So in particular, are you talking about the ones that I toured? Is that kind of?
Yeah, either
Yeah.
one, or even in discussion with people that were there.
So in discussion, I would say that the number one thing that I heard felt was frustration. The statistic that I heard was 90% of items are not being recycled. So just to highlight, in here we went to a composting facility. That facility cost $1 million, and it is a privately run facility attached to Westlock's landfill. And the recipient of that compost is one farm. And so they were there 2 days, so I had a chance to talk to them a bit. So that in and of itself, are they making compost? Yes, but is that a true solution to not using fertilizers when only one farm is the recipient of the compost? The reason that is that farm has invested in that facility, so that was happening there. Then I think the place of interest was Leduc's Eco Station. It was beautifully run with 6 staff. So the idea is they cannot run that station without, like two on two kind of, without people being there, because contamination is significant. And they were saying they could have a whole load of glass But if there's one jar that has salsa in it, the whole load goes to the landfill. So it's about preventing contamination, and it is it's a steep curve to teach people the significance of exactly how their items need to be recycled. So at that eco station, very, very well set up. Every bin has a table in front, and those tables is where the citizen puts their items on. Staff actually puts it in the bin. So that, so I was thinking in terms of, we've had some frustration with the state of ours where we recycle. And the number one thing is it has to be staffed. So we have to be aware of the cost attached to that too. And then the other really cool thing though is baling garbage in Leduc. That was the landfill at Leduc is almost full. So they were just going to move, they got land to make another landfill, but then suddenly the airport authority said, you can't, the old landfill is kind of grandfathered into some of the rules, but the new landfill has to make sure that birds cannot go to the landfill because birds are a hazard to the flight paths. So then they have this $2 million machine that will bale all the garbage. It's pretty fascinating, but is it realistic? So really great learning though. I guess that's just what I wanted to stress, that sometimes thinking a little bit outside of our typical meetings we go to, it was time well spent. So thank you for indulging me.
Thank you for that. Just for a little clarification. So it didn't really outline any recycling, some collection. Was there examples of some of those items actually being recycled as well?
No, other than composting. And composting does take wood, right? So there is some collection of some paper products and wood. They call them the swamp mats, not rig mats. So there was some of that. Collection is happening. There is belief that there is some recycling happening, but we did not go to any of those kind of facilities.
Great, thank you. Were there any other items that we removed from the consent agenda, just so I don't gloss over any? What was them? Very good. Yeah, we're waiting on one individual for, just so everybody's on the same page with the agenda. We had hoped that our member of parliament, Honorable Blaine Calkins, would be here to discuss some items of some areas of mutual interest. And the agenda, I believe, was already prepared prior to that notification. So in fact, he will not be attending this evening, be part of this agenda. And we did have planned a presentation by Kimberly Worthington with the Central Alberta Economic Partnership. And I've been led to believe that she is not in the building yet. Is that still correct, Administrative Assistant Malbono?
Yes, that's correct.
Very good. So I think that with that in mind, we can move further down the agenda then. And just so I don't gloss over any of the official motions, because we did discuss a few items, do we need to receive those separately in the consent agenda? CAO Gowdy?
Yes, I believe you ought to receive those as information and endorse a resolution to the same effect.
Thank you. Anybody have a motion in that regard? Councillor Connick?
I also move that we accept Councillor Hooks' report and the letter from Tofield as information.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. So the first item up under request for decision is our 2021 census series, age, demographics, and gender. And I would call upon one of our newest employees at the City of Lacombe. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Beth. Beth McLaughlin is the Senior Development Officer with our Planning Department. It's a pleasure to have you at your first council meeting. with Lacombe anyway. And I just remind you, thank you for using the microphone. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Good evening, members of council. As mentioned, I am new to Lacombe, so this is my first presentation to you. So I'm going to be presenting the population and demographics from the federal census for 2021 to you today. So the Government of Canada is releasing the census results in a series of scheduled dates through 2022, sorry. So we don't have all of the information from the census as they compile it. It is coming out. So up until today's date, we have 4 different releases of census data from the government, with a few more to come up until November 30th, 2022. So this will be the first in a series of reports that you'll receive in regards to the census data. So the census, the federal census, is conducted once every 5 years. This census took a little bit longer through 2019 to 2021. The Canadian government did consult with Canadians on a variety of questions that they were going to ask in this census. One of the changes that'll be highlighted later on is in regards to the gender population, was a new question that was asked in the census. So when they were consulting Canadians, they were determining what the best questions were for the 2021 census. The census was conducted in May of 2021, and Statistics Canada was reporting a 98% response rate from Canadians for the federal census. So when we come down to Lacombe and break down the population growth, since 2016, Lacombe has increased by 339 citizens, with a total population under the federal census results of 13,396. So there's a variety of percentage of growth weights between 2006 and 2011, and 2011 to 2016 were both at 8.9%. And we did see a smaller percentage of growth rate between 2016 to 2021 of only 2.6%.
Excuse me, Beth. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just for some people viewing at home, they may be a little confused by those numbers. So that is a grand total change between those dates. That is not an annual change between those dates.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yes, that's a grand total change for a period of those 5 years.
Thank you.
And not annually year to year. It should be mentioned that many municipalities in Alberta did experience a population decrease between 2016 and 2021. So in that 5-year period, I think we all know that there were some recent economic conditions which did produce a decline in Alberta's population, in particular lower oil prices and higher unemployment in the province during that time. Although that did occur, Lacombe's growth is very close behind the forecasted growth in the municipal development plan, which is shown in the table at the top. The long-term growth was also adjusted from the chart that you see in the municipal development plan. Previously, we projected a growth of 2.2%, and that was lowered to 1.75%. So in overall, the city of Lacombe is on track to grow as projected. We can see in the bottom chart that the population growth has been steadily increasing since 1986 over the years. When the population census is conducted, it's broken down into age groups. The main 3 age groups are 0 to 14, 15 to 64 years, and 65 years and over. So we have projected that in the tables for you. For the population between 0 to 14, we don't have comparison data between 2016 and 2021 because the federal census changed the age range for that lower population, that younger population, where the youth population seems to have declined. Ages 15 to 18 have been added into the working force group. So while it appears to have declined, it actually hasn't. The age group of working representatives is 15 to 64. So there's a number of age groups that have been added into that category, which shows those higher levels of population. The average percentage of people between 0 to 14 between all of our comparator municipalities is 20.1%, with Lacombe slightly under that average at 19.7, but we're very, very close. The makeup of our senior population did rise slightly in all of our comparator municipalities, with the percentage of the 65 plus population being 17.37%, and Lacombe sitting higher than average at 18.8%. In this category, we're able to show the comparison on the bottom right chart between 2016 and 2021, as that age group did not change. We've also provided some comparators between Lacombe, Alberta, and Canada in 2021. We've also given you the comparison from 2016, where you can see the differences in the population and the age ranges. And again, as noted, the numbers do change due to that age group changing from 0 to 14 and those 3 age groups being added into the working force population. As I mentioned earlier, one of the new questions on the census for 2021 was in relation to gender. So we've provided a diagram comparing Lacombe's gender population to that of both Alberta and Canada. When the census results came out, gender was being asked. However, due to the small number of people who identified as non-binary, Statistics Canada added a category of men plus and women plus, both meaning men and or boys, including non-binary people, and women and or girls, including non-binary people. So it didn't give us that much new data in regards to the gender population because they did get considered with the men and women. So the future trends for Lacombe, the biggest one comes down to the baby boomer population. By the year 2031, baby boomers will be aged 65 to 84, and those aged 65 and older will account for approximately 23% of Canada's population. Currently, Canada is at 19%, with Lacombe residents 65 and older at 18.8%. So on trend to be at that 23% by 2031. More information will be coming in regards to immigration. Those results have not been released as of yet, and information on the census. However, over the past 15 years, the share of recent immigrants to the prairie provinces has more than doubled. And the percentage of new immigrants living in Alberta rose from 6.9% in 2001 to 17.1% in 2016. Between those years, Lacombe welcomed 315 immigrants to the city. So that number will be updated when that information is released and we're able to present to council that information. So this report and the presentation is meant to just summarize some of the results from the federal 2021 census for mayor and council today. We do grow, although it was lower than our typical numbers in previous census periods. It is showing that we are on an upward trend through the years as we have in the past. I thank you and welcome any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. We appreciate it. Any questions from council? Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. No, just some comments. I'm looking forward to these other reports as well. I think there's a lot of good information there. I just like the fact how, you can see that Black Falls is a really young community, whereas we have a more balanced community, which I kind of like. So anyways, that's terrific report. Thank you.
Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This might be through to CAO Gowdy. Regarding these numbers, are these the numbers we use for grants and other, use these census numbers for that? And other costs, so on?
That's actually up in the air right now. The province is has done consultation on restoring an act they repealed to allow municipal census numbers to be used for grants about 3 or 4 years ago. And so we're expecting that they will revert to allowing municipal census in the future as the basis for grant allocations. Right now, that's actually an open question. They have indicated that they will consider some municipal census numbers in high growth communities, but they haven't actually committed to that. So in some areas, we use the federal census numbers, and in others, we rely on the municipal census numbers.
And these numbers are used for other things also, correct?
Things like,
Like our solid waste collection?
yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. So these are the numbers that we rely on when we are dealing with external service providers, would be the federal census numbers. When we are going for grant allocations to the province, then we go to the municipal census numbers, because we're confident that it is actually a more comprehensive approach to getting response ratings out of your community. Municipal approach.
So thank you for bringing up the regional waste requisition rate is in fact had a slight overhaul for a few different reasons. There was some issues with population estimation in the past few years. So the commission has seen fit to implement a somewhat new approach for calculating those based upon the federal census. So that is one instance where in fact there will be some slight adjustments. Was there any other follow-ups, Councillor Gluckson? Anyone else? So I was just curious on this particular future trends item. So the percentage of new immigrants living in Alberta rose from 6.9% in 2001 to 17% in 2016. Just for clarification, how long is an individual considered a new immigrant? Is this is on an annual basis? It was close to 7% in 2001, and then in 16 it was 17%. Is that's 17% of the entire population, 17% greater than the year before? What exactly is that number?
Through Mayor Creasy to members of council, that I believe was a collective number in Alberta in 2016. I don't have the information on how long you remain a new immigrant to know if that 17.1% is collective of all of those who have arrived since 2001. That is information that is available through Statistics Canada. And I think we can report on that in our next set of reports that come forward to council. We can document that for future reporting.
That would be wonderful. I'd appreciate that. I think Lacombe prides itself on being an open, inclusive community. So it'd be nice to have an accurate depiction of exactly what that has resulted in thus far. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Director Thompson, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. While I wasn't able to find immediately a definition for new immigrant, Statistics Canada has a definition for a recent immigrant, which may be the same. It refers to a person who obtained landed immigrant or permanent resident status up to 5 years prior to a given census year. So we will confirm that is the definition referred to in this statistic, but certainly that is the close definition that Statistics Canada uses.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a quick comment. Of course, it was mentioned in the memo, sort of referencing that we had our own municipal census as well as there's the federal. And it was very interesting, actually, within the last few weeks, I was having a conversation on social media, and someone had said that Lacombe population was decreasing, and this was in regards to schools. And I was very confused as to why they were suggesting that we were decreasing. I'm like, no, we're definitely not decreasing. But it's because that municipal census was factored in and we were higher, of course, right? So while it's very close, it actually literally on the dashboard shows us as decreasing, which is a little bit frustrating if people are actually looking at that and kind of thinking, kind of judging our community. I mean, that's, I guess, problematic, but there's nothing really you can do about it. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, that's some interesting numbers for sure in that regard. I think that if this is an indication what a shrinking community looks like, bring it on, because we've got more business development and residential development than there's been in Lacomb's history. So yeah, there's either some reporting issues or some accounting ones. So does that wrap up this subject? Perhaps we could motion to receive it for information would be appropriate. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that council accept the City of Lacombe population demographics, age and gender report as information.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Senior Development Officer Beth Lachlan, thank you very much for presenting to us this evening. Look forward to many more. If we just take a step back, if we could, and invite to the front Kimberly Worthington with the Central Alberta Economic Partnership. We're pleased you're able to join us. You've certainly been here before, and make yourself at home there. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Just a word of caution: please use the microphone so that our viewers at home can hear as well. Yeah.
Familiar faces after a few years, that's for sure. So my name is Kimberly Worthington, and I'm with a organization called Central Alberta Economic Partnership. We are a Regional Economic Development Alliance in partnership with the Government of Alberta and approximately 32 member municipalities and over 25 organizations. Our mandate is to advance sustainable regional economic development at the local level, and we do that in a number of ways. And I'm not going to go into those ways so much as give you examples of how we help our communities be more successful in economic development. I was reading your strategic plan 2022-2025 just before coming here, and the guiding statement in there that you have: growing through collaborative and empowering partnerships, the City of Lacombe is a desirable community to visit and a vibrant, healthy community to live in. And you couldn't have said it better. Cape has the platform for Lacombe, the City of Lacombe, to achieve that vision and your desired outcomes as well through a number of initiatives. We've just completed a tourism asset inventory, including analysis on how to facilitate growth and collaboration in and amongst tourism operators in anticipation of increasing visits and overnight stays. One of the things that has been identified through the government, through Travel Alberta, through the work that we have done, is that we need to have more overnight stays, because the dollars that stay in your community, and tourism is an export industry, you get new money into your community through tourism, but the dollars that stay in your community with overnight stays or in your region are that much greater than if it's just a day visit. We have just completed a regional economic growth strategy, and the difference that this strategy has compared to organizational strategies is that it's for the entire region. The entire region was consulted, members and non-members alike, to figure out how in 5 years, in the next 5 years, we can grow Central Alberta. In there's a number of priorities and strategies that the board would like to see. And one of them is labor growth. So we have a workforce program, a workforce strategies program, which is really critical to growing our region, because without labor being one of the two major considerations that investment and business take into advisement when they're locating, they're not going to locate in the region. So we've done a regional profile, we've done workforce strategies, and we're going to be putting on a workforce strategies summit in 2023. Hopefully with funding, it's going ahead no matter what, but hopefully we'll get some funding so we can bring in some higher level speakers. And our focus is working with employers to ensure that they have the tools in their kit to be employers of choice. As you know, with the pandemic and working remotely and new demographics coming into the workplace, like the lady before was talking about the retirement and the baby boomers that's happening, employers really need to, what we've identified and they've identified, is step up their game to be able to recruit and retain the skilled talent that they need. So that's one of our programs. Our other program is Municipal Investment Attraction Readiness. And when, again, I look at your strat plan about growing the community and creating an environment conducive for investment and development, I think this is a wonderful fit. We have a land inventory that's green, so we're always updating it. And that provides site selectors, developers, realtors with information along the lines of what land is shovel worthy, what land is shovel ready across the region, and what the specs are, whether there's utilities there, what is the internet capacity, rail, road, airlines, etc. Every piece of information that a site selector would require is in that document for them to access when they're looking for sites that are ready to go. Other pieces of that include, currently we're doing a SWOT analysis across the region. So we're looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and where we can improve our investment readiness regionally and sub-regionally. So that aligns with your being ready for investment attraction in your strategic plan. We also have robust community profiles, which is about a 70-page resource document that you can access at about 50% of the cost with the funding we got through CanExport, which is about a $5,000 savings right there. So we have a lot of tools in our kit for our member municipalities to utilize in terms of municipal investment attraction readiness. And we also bring training to your staff and to elected officials. In 2024, it was just approved by the board to bring a convention called SiteLink, where we will bring 6 to 8 site selectors from international and US land. And they'll come to Central Alberta, and we will have them here for about 3 days, where you can showcase your community. You'll have opportunity to talk to top developers, site selectors, investors, etc. at this event, as long as you're a CAPE member. And when I look at, and if I have the right year, your budget for economic development, it sits around $700,000, I think, for the year. Your the cost to belong to CAPE is like $8,200 for next year. And I would really encourage you to reconsider being a member. We are going in a new direction with the regional economic growth strategy and having a business person as our chair for the first time ever. It has always been an elected official as our chair, and James Carpenter is our current chair, and he is a shaker and a mover. In fact, he's been to India on behalf of himself and one of our associate members, but also on behalf of Central Alberta, to celebrate what we have here and to attract global entrepreneurs. He will be going back, I believe, in November to talk to, I think they're doing a 10-town tour, whereas last time they did a 5-town tour across India. And what we have done is created an inventory of opportunities in the municipalities that he takes with them and try to match those investors and those entrepreneurs with those opportunities that are in the communities. We're also working with somebody who has strong connections in Mexico too, for the same reasons, as well as for the Rural Renewal Program, which is attracting international labor to help fill that labor gap that we're realizing nationwide and internationally. So with that, I think I will open the floor to questions.
Thank you for that. I guess just one with something that most people see in their day-to-day lives is a labor shortage, more noticeable in certain sectors than others. But I'm curious, how does that responsibility fall within organizations across the province like CAPE, as opposed to the provincial government and in fact the federal government?
Well, the immigration pieces definitely fall under federal and provincial jurisdiction, like the Rural Renewal Program. We're here to help our municipalities facilitate some of that activity. We're also here to work with current employers that need to improve their tool set or enhance their toolkit to retain and recruit employees right now, and to keep them here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess maybe it's hard to bring forth data, but annual successes, like to document positive results or and so forth upon your organization, like could that be could you provide some of them positive outcomes and so forth upon your membership as to economic development being outsourced as a result of your membership?
Sure. Well, economic development is a long-term game. So it's the part of it is the networking and creating those relationships, long-term relationships, especially with investors and site selectors, because that doesn't happen overnight. It probably happens quicker when you're looking at business retention and having companies expand that are already here or near here. We do create a lot of reports and information that we then follow up on. So for example, I had mentioned the tourism asset assessment. We're now looking at working with those companies to help them grow and help them collaborate. So although that's not a success from the past, that's something we see as a success into the future. Having the first 9 communities sign up for the Rural Entrepreneur Program, I would say is a considerable success. Still, 90% of the communities that are signed up for that are CAPE communities, and that's in part because of our support to those communities to facilitate those efforts. In terms of investment attraction and landing something, we have since 2011 farmed that out to another organization, and as of late, like the last 2 years, we've decided to bring that back in-house. So we're slowly looking at what those outcomes will be. I will say that our chair is very focused on measurable outcomes. And we're quite excited about moving forward with the investment attraction piece. Our role has always been to create that capacity at the local level, as opposed to doing the work for the local level, but providing those tools and resources. And we've been quite successful in that. It's actually an award-winning program. So if you think that awards are a measure of success, I would say that that's something to be proud of. Yeah.
Anyone else? We certainly do thank you for taking time to come and visit us. I would say that you've got a strong proponent of your organization in Mayor Ganem from Wetaskiwin, and he's been saying nothing but wonderful things about the organization and you as well. So be sure and tell him to keep up the good work as well.
I will do. Yeah, Tyler's a very strong advocate. I will leave you with this. If you are a fiscally responsible council, I read that in your strat plan, and good for you. Your membership in CAPE is about 1.2% of your annual budget. And you do have an opportunity to sit on the board and help drive the direction of Central Alberta in that role. Mayor Gandam right now is the role, the position is being filled by him because they are the one city under 20,000 in central Alberta. So he gets an automatic seat. But if there was a little bit of competition, which is coming up at our fall general meeting at the end of November, then you could possibly have that seat. And I think that Mayor Hansen from the town of Sylvan Lake would concur. It's much like a gym membership. You get out of it what you put into it. They were at one point questioning the value of CAPE as well, which all members should, especially when you're using taxpayers' dollars. And she said the time that they made a decision to step up and be more involved in the organization, and that it has been well worth it over the last few years. So I'll leave you with that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Kimberly. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so I think that our next item up, we're going to direct over to see here, request for decision with respect to the Iron Wolf Close Road repair. Director Thompson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, and good evening, council. I'm here tonight to request council's consideration of a budget increase for Department 32, which is the roads department, to the tune of $19,135. And this is to complete a repair of a section of Iron Wolf Close. This is before council because this specific section of road was the topic of a recent RFI. And it also includes a non-standard or an alternative repair methodology that we wanted to make council aware of. And so this section of Iron Wolf Drive has been subject to high water that initially crews thought was a water leak, but have since ruled that out. And now we believe that it is due to high groundwater that is preventing the road in that area to reach its full life. And so to complete the repair of this section of road, we've engaged our engineers and a local contractor to develop solutions, practical solutions to this problem. And they have come up with a French drain type repair that allows the ground below the surface of the road asphalt to drain into the storm system. And they can and are able to complete that repair this fall. This will allow the road to go through a full freeze-thaw cycle, and then we can monitor it next year for whether it's a candidate for paving or whether we need to wait another year to see if it's holding up. So this evening, we're asking for council's approval for a budget increase of $19,135.
Thank you, Director Thompson. Who was on first? Councilor Hoekstra, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I think you just answered it, but this is not paving. This is just a repair, not just, but it's a repair and then paving will happen later. This cost does not include that, correct?
Correct. This cost does not include paving. In the report, we did highlight the cost of paving next year, about $7,600, and we would propose just to include that in our spot patching program for 2023, if it's holding up.
Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So just further into that, the spot patching, are we completed the spot patching for 2022? Why it would not be just done at the same time? For then, obviously, then it would be more convenient for snow removal and so forth.
Certainly, Councillor Ross, yeah, you're correct. It would be more convenient. We need to excavate the area and install a French drain below the surface and tie it into our storm system, and then restore it back to a gravel surface this year. This is a new or an alternative way of addressing this type of issue, and so we want to leave it for a freeze thaw to allow the excavation to settle and to ensure that it is successful the new year before we apply paving. We did patch it with asphalt previously, and it failed really quickly. And that's why we want to explore alternative solutions and what we're deploying and proposing to do this fall.
Thank you, Director Thompson. So I recall this particular area being a problem many, many years ago. And I'm just curious, what is it that has driven the need for this to be addressed this year as opposed to doing it next year in the regular cycle and perhaps maybe a little closer to the time period when it's more likely to be asphalted over as opposed to leaving it open all winter long?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. It was the subject of an RFI, and as you pointed out, it has been a kind of a long-standing issue for the residents in that area. Addressing it now this fall will allow for a freeze thaw cycle to occur and to include it in the paving program potentially next year anyway. Our paving program is completed for the year. Certainly spot patching is done. And so we're looking at paving next year anyway. And so certainly if we were to defer it to next year, we would still recommend pushing it, the paving of it until the following year to still allow for a full freeze thaw cycle to occur and for us to evaluate whether that repair has been successful or not.
Very good. So to have that opportunity to evaluate after a winter freeze thaw cycle is more advantageous than it is the harm that could possibly be done by having it open over the winter. That's reasonable.
Certainly, that's how we've evaluated it. The surface, we would restore it still to a gravel surface, but certainly that's how we've evaluated the situation. Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I would so move that council approves a budget increase of 19,135 for Department 32, Street and Roads funded by the General Capital Reserve to repair iron roof close as presented.
Thanks, Councillor. Any additional questions or concerns from anyone? All those in favor? I believe that was unanimous, none opposed? No, that's unanimous. Thank you. We did jump around a little bit on our rather short agenda. However, I think that takes us down to the in-camera items. So rather than break and restart the on-air feed, I'll just briefly go through our upcoming meetings. For all of these meetings are at 5:30 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The first regular meeting is on September 26th. Then again on Tuesday, October 11th, once again for a regular council meeting. And then in addition to a regular meeting is also our annual organizational meeting, and that is later in October on the 24th, once again of October. So you can mark those on your calendars, everyone. But unless I've overlooked anything, I believe that takes us down to in-camera items. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that we move in camera.
Very good. The record reflected at 6:25.